Welcome back to Story Glimpse. Today, part 2 of House Al-Amin. How will he survive this cursed chain of events? Hello again, Weston Kincade here, bestselling horror and mystery author. If you'd like to find out about my books, check the links below. Also, it would mean the world to me if you like, subscribe, and click the bell to find out about new and upcoming episodes. And today, we have part 2, the conclusion of House Al-Amin. Hassan breathed a sigh of relief. He still felt her phantom touch on his chest. Shaking it off, he slid to the floor and guarded himself behind bent knees as questions ran through his mind. Okay, why am I here? The moth said it was my own choosing. How can I be alive when they're dead? Am I supposed to put them out of their misery? The questions swirled through his head like a whirlpool. He pondered each one, but kept a wary eye on the door. Eventually, he remembered a question he'd asked his mother. Protect them from who? She said My what? There was only one answer that came to mind. Hassan's father was a curse throughout their lives. The scant memories that had returned assured him of it. If his father was lording over them in death, it was too much. He has to die. Setting his jaw, Hassan rose to his feet and pulled up his cowl. He patted his chest, checking for his hansa. The small amulet bulged under his shirt. Fatima will protect me. He grabbed another bone from his pouch and unconsciously spun it over his knuckles. After summoning his courage, he began a search of the house. The rooms of the lower floor proved empty. His mother had been right, though. As he progressed through the house, he saw evidence of the fire. Charred remains were scattered all around. How did I miss it before? The answer was simple. He hadn't been looking for it. The stairway displayed more of the inferno's devastation, and the upper floor contained the majority of the fire damage. Feeling his way along ashy walls of the hallway, Hassan peered into rooms hoping to find his father. Scanning the hall, his eyes came upon a singed picture. It was still intact and hung where his family had left it, a family portrait. All three of them, including his mother, were seated for the photo. However, their father stood over them with dark, brooding eyes. They were hard as stone. There was nothing left of the man his mother had married, no love or concern. Only duty and vengeance remained. His mother's eyes peered back at him. In them, he saw fear. The sight renewed his faith. I will kill him. Nothing will stop me. As he approached the end of the hall, a memory flashed through his mind. A few feet away lay the door to their bedroom. He was forbidden to enter as a child, but it was where he would find his father. Sarum Abu Hassan ibn Mukhtar Al-Amin, your treachery is at an end, Hassan whispered. The day of reckoning is here. He grasped the doorknob and flung it wide. Hello, my son, echoed a voice from his past. Memories of the same crude tone flooded his consciousness. Sareem cursed him at every chance. Feelings of ineptitude and futility weighed on his shoulders like an anvil. Hassan's hatred grew to a boil, fueling his rage toward the man. He shrugged off the feelings of inadequacy and looked up at his father. He was still taller than Hassan, and his hair had grayed, but not enough. Long curls fell to his shoulders like Hassan's, and two stony eyes stood perched on a narrow nose. A dusty robe shrouded his form, but his hands and face were blistered. Flakes of skin hung from his chin as though attempting to escape his frazzled beard. Hassan threw back his hood and met his father's haunting gaze. Yes, father, it's me, Hassan. I've returned. I knew you would, eventually. You scurried away with your tail between your legs. That day I knew I was wrong to have given you such a cherished name. You are no more powerful than a frightened mouse, and now you come begging at my doorstep. I have nothing for you, Hassan. You mean no more to me than that mongrel you shot when you were a child. Memories of the event flowed through his mind. He sifted through, searching for what happened. I didn't shoot her, he exclaimed. A local boy did. She was already dead when I found her. Did you make him pay for it? No, mumbled Hassan, feeling as though he were 5 years old once more. His eyes fell to the floor. Then you did it. She meant nothing to you, and you'll get nothing from me. Sarim took a step toward her, then another. Hassan's eyes searched for something, anything to look at other than this man. Then he realized his father's game. It was one he had played Hassan's entire life. Sarim was good at it. Hassan served this man in the futile hope that he might find a word of praise. He never did. But when his mind took him down a separate path, his father spurned him. Never again. The words echoed through his body like a canyon. He raised his eyes from the floor and met his father's once more. The gap separating them shrank a few feet. No, father, you chose the correct name. I am trustworthy and powerful. Believe this, I will kill you. Sarim guffawed. You think to kill me? His words turned to a maniacal laugh. His sanity is gone. He thinks himself invincible. That will be his downfall. The young mage seized the moment. Words flowed across his vision, unbidden. Hassan chose two of the larger bones and lifted his hansa from beneath his robe. The hand of Fatima. You think to banish me with it? Shouted his father with a gut-wrenching laugh. I am the will of Allah. I am no more evil than Muhammad himself. But go on, wretched dog. Try if you must. I can't wait to see this. Hassan widened his stance and ignored the insult. Lifting his hand to the sky, he threw the fragments into the air and chanted for the gods to hear. Turak Aman Valides para Atun. Fatima bin Muhammad, I send Sarim to meet you. Let him find no peace. Gray clouds roiled above, stirring the air to life and blocking the sun from view. The glow of his raised hand was a beacon in the shrouded sky. You serve Shaitan, muttered Sarim. You demon spawn. Karim Shaitan, Iblis has found you. The patronizing smile slipped from his face, and for once, fear gleamed in his eyes. No, father, I serve Fatima bin Muhammad. She guides me in the light of Allah. Hassan smiled as fear entered his father's eyes. The mage twitched his finger, and a lightning bolt struck the floorboards at Sarim's feet. Flames sprang up, catching the next board and the next. Soon fire coursed across the room. Sarim did not flinch. His rigid eyes held Hassan, unmoving, and it was as though the fear had never existed. The next is coming for you, Sarim, Hassan said with confidence. I'm sure. A hidden smile played at the corners of Sarim's lips as he watched through a wall of flames. The house cracked and groaned around them. Hassan ignored the noises and flexed his finger again. A bolt streaked down from the heavens. Seeing the movement, Sarim tumbled through the fiery barrier. He came up flourishing a dagger in his hand. The blade slipped between Hassan's ribs like a knife through warm butter. His father tilted it upward and slid it into the hilt. Hassan's breath caught as pain lanced his heart. His gaze fell from the skies and returned to Sarim, who stared from bare inches away. The mage's eyes widened before he fell to his knees. The older man ripped the dagger free, wiped it on his son's shoulder, and sheathed it with a laugh. Kadim Shaitan, in what life did you think you could kill me? I am the lion, servant of Allah. Iblis will make you his bride for felling him. Enjoy hell. Hassan flattened his hand on the heated boards, struggling to steady himself. This can't be. I can't fail. I will kill Sarim. He took a labored breath and searched for an answer. Fighting to hang on, his emotions delved through his hand and into the house itself. A soul answered him from afar. Abdul Masih, his brother and servant of the Reckoner, begged for release. Without a body and imprisoned by the walls, Abdul was even more of a captive than before. Help me, brother, Hassan cried silently. The boy's body lay motionless in the yard, a shell without its lost soul. There, Hassan shouted into the unseen world, signaling Abdul's blind soul. I am here, Hassan, whispered Abdul. Make me whole. Sarim turned and paced across the decrepit room, ignoring the flames lapping at his elbows. It is a wretched pleasure watching you suffer, Kadim Shaitan. Death will not come easily. Hassan plucked one of the remaining avian fragments from his belt while bowed on the floor. Lifting it to his lips, he exhaled a cherished breath on its surface and chanted, Ser al-Latim, Sayar de la Peace. Fatima, return this soldier to me. Opening his hand, the bone vanished. "I am ready, brother," was Abdul's silent reply. His vision darkened, but Hassan pushed it back. He was not yet ready for death. Just then, a cry thundered from outside. "Allahu Akbar!" shouted his young brother. His ghoulish strength still remained, and he leapt into the second story without hesitation. The house groaned as he landed on fractured timbers. If it pained the young boy, he did not acknowledge it. "You're too late," muttered Sarim with a smile. "He's good as dead." "I would have saved him for you if I'd known you were coming." The lie was convincing, and gave away his ignorance. The two brothers smiled, while Sarim's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. Hassan's hand went to his belt. "One left. Gotta make it count." "Fine. I'll end this now," muttered Sarim. He strode over to Hassan and gripped him by the throat. He threw him onto his back with the strength of a bull, then lifted a clawed hand. Sarim tore into his son's chest without hesitation. His fingers curled around Hassan's fluttering heart and ripped it from his torso. "Finally, you troublesome youth, it is over." "Yes, father, it is," rasped Abdul from behind. He leapt onto the man and thrust the sharpened metal wing into Sarim's back. A fury overtook him, and he brought the toy up and down with repeated vengeance. Their father howled and stumbled away from Hassan into the firestorm that had engulfed the far side of the room. Abdul jumped off at the last second and watched the flames consume their father. Sarim reached over his shoulder, struggling to reach the toy lodged between his shoulder blades. The inferno grew, and he cried out for help, but only the inferno answered. Abdul's eyes danced with glee as he stared at the afflicted man. "Abdul," Hassan whispered, "help me." He gazed at his younger brother from the floor, fighting futilely to keep the darkness at bay. Blood poured from his chest like a sieve. He stowed the last bone fragment in his off hand. As Abdul approached, Hassan ground it to dust in his fist. "You're dying, Hassan," the small boy announced without emotion. "Yes. But you do not wish to?" Hassan gave his head a subtle shake. He flexed a finger at his brother, and Abdul went to his knees. The 6 orbs circling his palm's eye shone brightly, but the boy ignored them. Summoning the remainder of his strength, Hassan plunged his hand into Abdul's chest. His young brother didn't flinch. Instead, he stared knowingly at Hassan. Abdul's body jolted as his heart was plucked from its cradle, then crumpled to the ground. Hassan fell back to the floor with his brother's heart pumping in his hand. Parts had begun to rot, but it was still intact. A shadow descended as he fumbled it into his chest. His breath came in shallow gasps, accompanied by a mouthful of blood. He coughed and sputtered as panic inundated his mind, but a serene sensation settled his emotions. Words fluttered before him, and he fought for focused calm. It was the first spell he had learned, the Hand of Fatima. He called it, like the medallion he wore. This simple spell of healing was never intended for something as abominable as this. All of this he knew within seconds, but it was his only chance. He gripped his hasma in an illuminated palm, closed his eyes, and prayed, "Fatima bin Muhammad, I do what I do in your name and for the glory of Allah. Please give me the strength to finish what I started." Without opening his eyes, Hassan sprinkled the powder over his chest and took one final breath. Shah Relium Sesun Abdil Al-Tawan. The words flew from his lips like ships to sea and resonated with the glow emanating from his amulet. A 7th orb appeared on his palm. The inner circle of the eye shone brighter than the rest. Illuminated within it was the ancient scrawl of his name. Sinew and bone began to knit under the glow of Fatima's hand. The hole closed and left only a scar to remember it by. Hassan arched his back in pain, then breathed deeply as his body sealed. Although the heart remained rotten, it beat within his chest with vigor. Out of thin air, a skeletal door appeared at his feet. He rose from the floor with labored steps and drained of energy. His body pleaded for sleep. Just a little farther, he told himself. He took a step toward the apparition when his gaze fell on Abdul Masai's empty form. He paused. "Thank you, Abdul." Without another thought, he turned the chilled bone handle and strode through. Hassan stepped from his burning home into a sealed chamber chiseled from sandstone. Faint lights illuminated the room's four corners. 5 elderly men sat before him around a long table. They gazed at him through sunken eyes and wrinkled faces. They were all dressed in robes with their cowls thrown back. The slender man at the center of the table spoke as Hassan entered. Assalamu alaikum, Hassan. Al-Amin. Wa alaikum al-salim, he replied. Hassan, how do you feel this test went? Test? Something tingled in the back of his skull, but nothing explained the test the elderly man spoke of. Uh-oh, the old man forgot to fix him, goaded a voice from the far wall. The seated elders stiffened. Turning to see who would dare, they found themselves face to face with a large brown moth. Hassan's earlier acquaintance was perched high on the wall. Hern Aidin's winged face was still grotesque, and somehow the Ifrit stuck his tongue out at the assembly members of the order. Figures, mumbled the largest of the men. He turned back to the table with a wheeze. The mage who greeted Hassan grimaced, and his wrinkles spread into his crown of white hair. With a wave of his hand, a deluge of memories streamed into Hassan's mind. Betrayed lovers, oaths, his years of apprenticeship, his mentor, Latif al-Jafari, and the reason for his prayers to Fatima. Everything made sense. Fatima, the savior of humanity, was their last hope. Only she could forgive their necromantic sins. Forgive me? Better now? The apprentice nodded low. Yes, Latif al-Jafari. Thank you. Hello there, Hassan, interrupted Hern. Remember me? Hassan nodded. And if my memory serves, aren't Ifrit mischievous troublemakers? The occupants of the room nodded in unison. Then why did you help me in the test? I did, didn't I? Answered Hern with a smile. Well, I've had to make a few changes, but not for long. He quirked an eyebrow at the mages seated below. Not by choice, added the obese mage. I have him on a short tether, but evidently it's not short enough. Well, you made the rules. I need my freedom, Hern retorted. The man sprung from his seat faster than Hassan believed possible. His rotund form tightened around the Ifrit's condescending gaze. Not by violating our sacred laws, he thundered. The mage's hand blazed to life, his own symbols illuminating the room as he singled out the Ifrit with a quivering finger. Another word and... Tobiah, that's enough, commanded Latif. His dark eyes bore into the two with the weight of the world. What's done is done. He motioned for silence, and Tobiah carefully returned to his seat. Hern's antenna quivered, but he said nothing more. Turning to his apprentice, the head mage continued. This test was intended to destroy the boy you were. To join the order of necromancy, you must be hard, more than a man. Cling to the past, and it will get you killed. I understand, Hassan replied. And do you feel you have met the demands of the test, my pupil? The question was expected, as was the answer. However, his last ounce of childhood innocence screamed to be heard. It pleaded for a voice, but Abdul's heart beat in his chest with the strength of youth, and that of a servant of the Reckoner. Yes, Latif al-Jafari. Then you are ready for the final test. Hassan knew there could be only one answer. I am, he replied, and squashed the last of his humanity like an insect under his boot. Good. While unprecedented, your creativity has certainly proven itself, added the mage at the far end of the table. You've passed the test and come out, somewhat unscathed. However, I use that term loosely. Good luck with the final test, and Fatima help you if you live another hour. The end. Thanks again for joining us for the conclusion of House Al-Amin. I hope you enjoyed our story, House Al-Amin. If you'd like to leave a comment below, we'd love to hear from you. And if you would like to hear about upcoming episodes, please like, subscribe, and click the bell above. Again, I'm Weston Kincade, bestselling horror and mystery author. My books are below, or links to my books are below, excuse me. Thank you for joining us, and keep writing. Have a good day.